I am here with Grimaldi Law Firm, amazing firm. It gives an amazing level of service to South Florida real estate agents. We're over here at Rock the Market, and I just wanted to interview Melinda, and I just wanted to talk to you about we saw each other at Tea Time Women's Council.
Yes.
Before that, Ro introduced us at the board. But
yes.
How did you get into title and real estate work?
So my family's been in real estate actually ever since I was a kid, both in Canada and when we moved here. So I've been buying, selling, renting, developing, building, leasing, borrowing regarding real estate with my family since I was a kid.
Nice.
So I grew up in real estate, and so that was our American dream, and now I'm helping others to do the same thing.
First-time home buyers, investors,
the works,
residential, commercial,
all of it. Yes, yes.
And what are some things like? Because I want to do a lot of education with agents, and we have things scheduled. What are some things for agents like? Because I'm dealing with them when they get the lien search from the title company,
right? And
they don't know where to go with that. So we're holding a lot of education classes on how to identify open permits and code violations.
Right.
What are some deals that you found that it would have helped to know earlier, or little mess deals to clean up?
So I think my biggest piece of advice is know early what the problems are, and by working with a company that runs their searches immediately, it allows
that would be you
time.
guys.
Yes, we run all our searches in the first week of receiving the contract.
So you don't run them out after the inspection period?
No, we don't wait for that, because the problem with that is by the time you get your search, you're a few days out from closing, and then that causes a problem in a delay, perhaps, right?
And depending on the municipality, sometimes they take 7, 14 days to get their information.
So there's that strategy that we have, but we also provide resources to realtors with links to the permit sites of all the different cities. Allows them to, when they're sitting down, if it's their seller and they have a listing, right at the listing stage, they can look it up and actually take care of the problem way before they're even under contract, because why not get ahead of the problem? Yeah. And so that my thing is to always get ahead of the problem.
Be proactive.
To be very proactive. And
so you'll give them a link to Miami-Dade County website, to the building,
every
people
city.
Like that your staff would use,
right.
Like things like that.
Yeah, exactly. We have a list of every single city in Broward, and it's actually just with a folio number. You can search to see if there's any permit problems.
Nice.
It allows the agent and
it's
the seller.
It's a great deal of information.
Yes.
And then the agent, what's really nice is they could go to their seller, even sometimes before taking the listing, and show, hey, you have an open roofing permit or something like that.
And that's what I actually educate them on, is use it as in part of your sales strategy when you're sitting there on a listing, saying, hey, by the way, I looked this up and you have an issue, so let's get ahead of the problem, and this is how you can do it. Call boss and
I've gotten some lien searches, like for example in Sunny Isles, a guy has an open flooring permit, but he renovated all the kitchen and bathrooms around it. So I just simply tell to the agent, I'm like, look, we can't close this permit, credit the buyer some money, and get to the closing table.
Right. So
you can close with open permits and code violations
as long as the buyer's okay with that.
As long as the buyer's okay with that. So the state legislature just enacted a bill saying that the Florida realtors were lobbying over 6 years, and they took the open permits and code violations, who's to remedy those if they're found outside the inspection period. So they have some type of sunset, but I don't know how the state is going to tell all the local building officials, because it's primarily a problem in South Florida, hey, you're going to disregard these open permits and code violations and cancel them out automatically. So it's a good start, but I don't know how it's going to be on the implementation stage.
Well, there's a lot of big things happening now. There's a lot of big things happening now, even just with that, with mobile notarization, a lot of these other things that are going to be changing the industry and how we're doing it. So it's definitely very interesting to see how it's going to play out. But if the state says it, they're going to have to figure out a way to deal with it.
And that's a very big thing for agents. And I just wanted to touch on one thing while I have you here, because your office is in Dade, right?
My office is actually in Hollywood Boulevard.
It's in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Do you creep into Dade at all with transactions?
I'm all over Dade.
So what have you found? Like, I've had a hard time with North Miami and reoccupancy inspections and things like that. So how have you seen buyers and sellers navigate that, and what are some of the implications?
So the key is to understand which cities require reoccupancy certificates and getting on that early. It's like right? Like the sooner you get and you order it, the better. That's where you have time to address if there's any issues. And the reality is, the city's looking to make sure things weren't done without a permit. Why? They want their piece of the action. They want their permitting fees. They want to make sure things are up to code and safe.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they want their fee. So it's just a matter of.
And they want the fee. They want a licensee to take responsibility for the work and them to be left held harmless. But what's very interesting is I was in North Miami and I was with Gary Biswick, and they're not looking for a duplex that has 3 units. They're looking for water heaters that were installed without a permit, AC. So I've seen the city relax these things, and I've seen the city get very strict with these things, and I've seen sellers get very frustrated. Like an elderly woman who has to sell their property, and she has sheds in her backyard and electrical things. So
and so I think it's up to the agents when you're sitting down, putting the expectations to the seller up front, and this is what's going to need to happen in this city, because you're in this city, this is what's required, and it's knowing that it actually applies in that city. So there's about almost 2 handfuls of cities in Miami-Dade where we need to apply for that, and then depending on the history of the property, if there was previous foreclosure, there's also some extra steps to take.
And what's your suggestion? I've talked to a lot of agents. I was real excited to ask you about this in the Caldwell Banker office in Aventura. That was one of the first places I did a class, and now I have all the agents calling me to facilitate reoccupancy inspections because they don't want to be part of the process. Because sometimes the seller says, hey, they'll call in, the seller will say, hey, you facilitate this. The agent says, I want to be a superstar and I want to give my agent a good level of service. They end up facilitating that process, and then sometimes they lose relationships with their seller if the process goes sour. So I always try and tell agents to kind of stay away from that stuff.
That's not a bad strategy, but I think if you set up the expectations of what happens and what could happen, it gives the sellers, or on other scenarios, buyers, if they know this is the possibility, this is what it's for, be ready that some things can come back. At the end of the day, I think in real estate in general, in closings, buyers and sellers need to be educated on the fact that things happen, things are out of our control, things can be last minute, and these are the things that can happen. And if that happens and that discussion happens early,
expectations are
the
set.
Expectations that, don't schedule your movers just yet, because it ain't over till it's over.
And no, the buyers always tell me when I get to them and the agent brings me to them, or the sellers, they say, well, I bought this property 8 years ago. It wasn't an issue then, and now it's an issue on the buyer's lien search when I'm selling my property. So I try and tell them, I'm like, look, they're trying to track down the previous contractor. They're trying to, say, hey, can I sue this company that's no longer in business? And I tell them, I'm like, look, the city at the end of the day just wants to reopen the permit, collect their fees, do a change of contractor, and close it out.
It's as simple as that.
But
just do that final inspection and call it in.
But some of these things I have a lot of deficiencies on, a lot of work without permits, and I set my expectations with my clients, and I do a little inspection, pass my free lien search and looking. So I want to make sure that I don't bring the city on the property when there are other things that are not in compliance, because one thing triggers another. It's like you open up an office and you get a local business tax receipt or occupational license, and the city says, oh wait, where do these walls come from? Where did all these improvements? You didn't pull permits for those. But thanks so much for having a conversation with us.